Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Super Switch Headz. Just me, as far as the hosts are concerned, today on this very special episode. But I am joined by the one and only DCD himself. Dan Murphy is joining me on the podcast. How you doing, Dan?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's just me and Dan today because we're going to be doing a very special episode. It's going to be Pac-Man 99 tips and tricks. You want to, this is a podcast we're doing by popular demand. It's pretty much as soon as the game was announced, people are like, Switch had special episode when. So we're doing it here today. And then Dan, I'm having you on because you actually wrote an excellent article for Boss Rush Network on how to get good at Pac-Man 99. Which has been helpful to me. In fact, it's been a good collation of a lot of the tips I've read online as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of like how Tetris 99 and Mario 35 was, where the game came out and there's pretty much no explanation to it.
Totally.
So I kind of did the same thing and went, you know, on the Pac-Man subreddit and everywhere online and took all the information I could on top of playing the game and just threw it into one article to try to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, for sure. And so this episode will be a bit of like going off of that article. That'll be sort of we're basing some of this on that and then adding some extra stuff that we've learned since then or some strategies that we've learned on our own while playing this game. Super fun game. I mean, if you're not familiar with Pac-Man 99 yet and you have a Nintendo Switch Online, it is free. At least the Battle Royale mode is free for you to play. Yeah, it's you know, it's a 99 player Pac-Man game. Doesn't play exactly like Pac-Man. And there are although with time it's turned more into a normal Pac-Man game than I was expecting from the beginning. So I'm interested to talk about some of that stuff with you. Real briefly, did you play a lot of Tetris 99 or Mario 35?
Tetris 99 I loved, but I still to this day haven't won. I'm still clamoring for the Switch Headz episode where you teach us how to play Tetris 99. So
you think it's not too late for that?
Not for me.
Okay.
Mario 35 I couldn't really get into. I was kind of expecting it to be more along the lines of the fast pace like Tetris 99 or now Pac-Man 99.
Right.
So I didn't play it too much, but I feel like this is the only one that's really caught on to me out of these games.
Right. I mean, definitely you're right in that Mario 35, it pains me to use the past tense for that game, but was a much slower and more deliberate game. And then Tetris 99 was obviously very fast paced. I mean, you know, if you're playing Tetris competitively, you have to be playing fast anyway. But I feel like Pac-Man 99 out of all three is the fastest paced of all the games. I find that rounds last under 5 minutes usually, especially if you suck and die and they're like a minute. But yeah, so let's get into some of the basics, I suppose. I think the thing that threw me immediately about how this game is different from regular Pac-Man is my instinct immediately was to clear the board. You know what I mean? And then that would generally take you to the next level in Pac-Man, right? But then whenever I cleared the board, all the ghosts were still coming at me. And I was kind of like, what did that even do? That seemed like it didn't really do anything. So first thing to know is kind of the gameplay loop, right? You know, obviously in this game, you're going to be eating ghosts, and then whoever you're targeting, you'll be sending those ghosts as jammer men to the other players, correct?
Right.
And then the jammer men, you'll see them on the board. They're like the little white ghostly Pac-Man. You have to really make sure not to call them ghosts because ghosts are different from Pac-Man ghosts and vice versa. But it's very similar to Tetris 99 or Mario 35 in that way, where you're sending enemies to other players. And what do the jammers do to the other players or yourself if you receive them?
So there's two kind of jammers. You have the white jammers and you have the red jammers.
Right.
The white jammers are the ones that you're going to send to your opponents if you eat a ghost. And really what they do is they just chase you and they slow you down. But you can get rid of the white jammers if you get one of the big power pellets.
Right.
Yep. And then once it gets down to 50 remaining, then you'll see the red jammers pop up. And if you get those, that's an instant KO.
Right. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I
my
think we all
brain
did.
was like, oh, hey, red shiny thing. Let's touch it and see what happens. And my game just ended.
Yeah, and then sometimes they just like pop up right on top of you when you're towards the end if there's like 3 or 4 left.
Yeah. That's one thing. I mean, we'll probably get to like full impressions of the game at the end, but it's like that's one thing that is definitely a part of this game that wasn't quite a part of Tetris 99 or Mario 35, where like RNG is a much bigger factor in this game, and kind of the randomness of it like can totally screw you sometimes depending on where you are on the map.
Right. And then with the red jammers too, the only way to clear them is to pick up a fruit.
Right.
So you can't get a power pellet and have them disappear. But if you don't have a power pellet active, they can actually move around and try to chase you as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say that too. And I think that's true with the white jammers too. So if you're in power pellet mode where the ghosts are blue, the white jammers are also still, right? They don't chase you unless the ghosts are colored, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So that's definitely, those are like kind of the main things you want to be looking out for in the game. And then, maybe let's get into some tech and some strategy for it, I suppose. Are there any basics that I'm missing out on?
I think the only other one is that Summer had pointed this out on your Facebook group. If you do clear all the pellets, you actually get an automatic, a permanent speed boost.
Right.
So that's something that's with the basics as well.
Cool. So maybe let's use that to jump into some strategies, because that's actually how I like to start the games. Mm-hmm. And basically I'll set and I guess we'll expand on targeting and power-ups here in a second. But how I generally play at the beginning is to set the targeting to counter. And hoping that a bunch of people are targeting me, because you want a bunch of people to target you so you can be sending ghosts to as many people as possible, right? So I'll generally start targeting counter, and then I'll usually set my power up to speed right from the very beginning. And the idea behind that is, as the game is beginning and the power pellet lasts the longest that it will throughout that game, you want to be clearing the board like 2 to 3 times right off the bat, I think. That's generally how I play, and let me know if you play differently. But I think that's why I pick speed, is so it's quicker for me to move around the board to clear it and get those permanent speed upgrades at the very beginning. And then once I've hit speed, 3 or 4, if I can clear the board, great. But that's definitely not my focus at that point. At that point, my focus is on survival, right? Do you play differently?
Yeah, so I do. My first 3 rounds, I always try to clear the board, but I don't try to clear the board fast, because every round you go up, the ghosts get a little bit faster. So if I'm using the speed power up, then I'm kind of just shooting myself in the foot, because the faster you go, the faster the ghosts will go. So like towards the beginning, I actually just keep it on standard. And when I go through the sleeping ghosts on the sides, I always make sure that I hit train, because when you have the train power up, every sleeping ghost doubles your ghost train.
Right.
The ones that like go latch on. So it's like I just switch from standard to train when I pick up the sleeping ghosts in the first 3 rounds.
Sure, yeah, and that's something we kind of glossed over at the beginning. We're going to be doing a lot of jumping around, because this game is very complicated for how simple it is. But yeah, there's obviously, whenever you start or whenever you get a fruit, there are lines of 8 sleeping ghosts on either side of the board, kind of up that main alley, that the main column, I guess, that goes up and down on the left and right. So the train of ghosts that you can create does max out at 36, correct?
I think it's 32.
Or 32, right. It's 2 times 16, right? So 32.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, if you have train selected, does that just mean, and you chomp both lines of sleeping ghosts, does that mean that you'll just max out earlier, or that you get a max total of 64 for your train?
No, you still max at 32.
Okay.
So you get, like, if you clear both sleeping ghosts on the board, you have a max ghost train, and then you can go and try to wipe them all out at once, and then get the fruit, then get the sleeping ghosts again, lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, ad infinitum. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. So that actually is probably a better strat than what I'm doing because it's then like you're still getting your max speed upgrades, but you actually have quite a bit of time. I guess you don't really need the speed in the first couple rounds in order to clear the board.
Exactly. And you don't really want to have the speed because you don't want to get into those late rounds where it gets more hectic.
Right.
But the other thing to note too is that every time you do get a sleeping ghost when you have the train power up, it spawns a jammer Pac-Man too. So
on your board.
So
okay,
you want to, you want to make sure you have the power pellet just kind of always handy too when you're training.
Well, that's generally like how I find my movement to be. It's like whenever I grab a fruit, the first thing you want to do, well, generally you want to grab a power pellet right before you grab the fruit, right? So you can be using that invincibility to like circle around, grab the fruit, and then immediately start going up and grabbing those ghosts or the sleeping ghosts, right? And then if you're, since the power pellets respawn whenever you grab a fruit, you can kind of then go straight up over to that power pellet and clear any of the jammers that have just popped up, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like when you get that fourth power pellet, I always automatically dash to the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't waste time with that one.
Well, especially in the late game when it's the power pellet lasts a very short amount of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of the essence of the speed upgrades. But I really do think it's important in the early game to get as many speed upgrades as you can, because when the game is moving super fast and the ghosts are moving super fast toward the end and there are reds popping up everywhere, you want to have the best maneuverability possible to get out of those sticky situations. And the jammers are going to be slowing you down. So something that I didn't see in your article that I think is important to know as well, just in regards to jammers, is, I mean, they're obviously the most fucking annoying part of this entire game, right? Like, it's like, if you're overrun and there's a ghost coming for you, there's almost like no way that, unless there's a power pellet like right in front of you, there's almost no way that you can get out of that a lot of times. But there is the fact that a power pellet is not the only way to clear jammers. And that's something that I find that I'm doing sometimes when I'm panicking and there's like a line of jammers following me, is just to like try to reach the power pellet, but I'll never get there in time if you're completely overrun. But something you can do is just chomp at the jammers, and you do kill them if you are going against them, right? So if you have enough space and time before a ghost gets to you, sometimes it's advantageous to kind of turn around and just quickly run through those line of jammers. I mean, it'll be kind of slow, but like if you do it, then you'll be able to outrun the ghost a lot better if you have enough time before he gets to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that a pro strat? I don't know.
I mean, I've tried to do it, but like I have such sensory overload sometimes that I can only focus on like one corner of the board.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you have time to do that, go for it.
Yeah. Cool. Good to know. But yeah, I mean, that's something early on. And especially when you have the power pellet and the jammer ghosts are just sitting there and chomping upwards, that's a good time to run through them and clear them that way. If it's going to be like, if you've got a long stretch until you're able to get to a power pellet, sometimes it's best to clear them out if you have the possibility to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing we should kind of point out too, that I maybe you play differently, but like for me, I have such a different strategy, like before there's 50 remaining to after there's 50 remaining. Sure. I feel like it's a completely different game because all that stuff we were talking about where like take it slow, try to get your speed up, or try to get the power or the pellets so you can permanently get your speed up. That goes like all out the window when there's 50 remaining.
Well, then it's just survival at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And avoidance. Yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing to note too is like the stronger power up. It's the X button. So every time you use a stronger power up, what it'll do is it'll send double jammers to an opponent, but it permanently decreases your speed 1.
So when you say permanently, do you mean while stronger is activated, or like it just
for the rest of the game?
So even if you switch off,
yep, it's still taken away for the rest of the game.
Damn. So now does it take one off every time you switch to stronger?
Yes, every time you switch to stronger.
Jesus Christ.
So it's definitely good to keep in mind like how many times you've cleared the board and gotten those speed up, because that's pretty much how many times you can use a stronger power up.
Right.
Without really hurting yourself on it.
Yeah. See, I'm scared shitless of the stronger power up because I think it makes it to where the power pellet time is only like 3 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's so short for me. Like anytime I like played with the stronger power up, I just got overrun really, really quickly. Right. I just, it's hard for me to see the advantage of it. And it's also just hard to tell because you could never like really see the effect of you sending jammers on whoever you're targeting. You just kind of have to hope it's working. Right.
Right. And I think that comes, so like I've only used stronger, like very, very end game, like when there's 10 remaining. Mm-hmm. It's only if I have like a big ghost train, it's directly in front of me, and then I'll switch to stronger with like the knockout,
right?
KO with the knockout targeting, right? So it's like you have 32 ghosts, you hit the stronger, it'll send 64 ghosts to someone you're trying to knock out right towards the end of the game, and that's pretty much been how I've won every time. But those are the only times I'll use a stronger power up.
Right. It's at the very end. That makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense to switch to knockout too. So you can kill, because if there's only 5 people left, they probably all have a good amount of badges. Right.
Exactly.
And so you're not having to focus. You're not having to target Hunter, which that will target whoever has the most badges. That's very much like the badges targets in Mario 35 and Tetris 99. But that's always a huge risk. I feel like out of all the targeting things, that's the one you want to be doing least, because at that point, they're probably going to be set to counter whoever has the most badges, and they'll just be really good at the game and probably sending you tons of shit at that point. But if you target knockouts at the end, then you're kind of like picking off one by one the people that have badges. And maybe let's talk about like badges and targeting and stuff like that a little bit, because we've talked about it briefly, but just to go over the rest of them, on the right hand side of the screen and what you control with the right analog stick is who you're targeting. For some reason, and infuriatingly to me, counter is set to the left swipe, where in Tetris 99 and Mario 35, it was left stick down, or excuse me, right stick down. And so that fucks with my brain. But counter will obviously be, if anyone is targeting you, you're going to be targeting them. So that's the best way to target multiple people at once, right?
Right.
And then if you press the right stick down, that'll be knockout. That's like targeting KOs in Tetris 99 or in Mario 35. And do you want to explain that one a little bit? I mean, I guess we kind of did already, but
yeah, I mean, it pretty much sends your jammers to whoever's going to be the closest to being KO'd. I'm assuming that that's just whoever has the most jammers on their board, right?
Okay, right.
Yeah, that one just is still pretty undetermined. I was trying to look online to figure out like how they determine knockout, but that's my assumption.
With Mario, it was like people with the lowest time, right?
Right.
Like that were closest to going out. And then with Tetris, it was players that had the Tetris
most
stack,
junk.
Yeah, most up towards the top. So it is a little weird. I would also assume that it's people that just have a shit ton of jammers already on them and throwing even more their way.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good one to do. We talked about Hunter, how that's very risk reward, but for my money, way too much risk. That's right stick pressed to the right.
I don't really use it.
Yeah, I don't use it either. I haven't used it in any of these games, really. I think like potentially it's okay to use early on, but then at that point also the reward from knocking somebody out will be much less because they won't have that many badges to begin with.
Right. And at the beginning, I mean, you can 50 people get knocked out without you doing anything.
Yeah.
So
well, it's like Mario 35. Like somebody always dies to the first Goomba in 1-1.
Yeah, every time.
Like at the end of the day, this is still Pac-Man, and if you just suck at Pac-Man, you'll just die regardless of who's targeting you.
Right.
Yeah. And then obviously the last one is random, which is the right stick up, which you should pretty much never do, I think. Or it's like you'll be targeting one person at a time at random, and it's just, there's really no advantage to that, mainly because it's constantly switching who you're targeting. So the main reason you would want to do that is if you are being targeted by a shit ton of people, you've been on counter this whole time, and then you're like, way too many people are on me, I need less jammers sent to me. Then switching to random will make it to where all those people will stop targeting you if they're also set to counter. Does that make sense? So it's a good way to clear a bunch of people targeting you at once if you're getting overwhelmed. But then, of course, the game moves so quickly that it's hard to make those calls anyway in the late game.
Right, and there's really no situation you're going to be in where random is advantageous to you.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
So I think you want to just kind of maximize whoever you're targeting to your situation, and that never really is the maximum effect.
Right. And these games always work better when you're playing offensively anyway, I think. A good defense is a good offense as it stands. There is one last form of targeting, which is really big brained and hard to do. But if you're playing in handheld mode and you see that someone's in deep shit in one of the very small boxes that are on the screen, you can touch them with your finger to target a specific box on the screen. But man, you got to just be able to see multiple things at the same time in order to do that. So I unless there's like 5 people left and you can clearly see one guy's about to die and you want to target them specifically, maybe try to avoid doing that.
I already have sensory overload just playing the game, let alone trying to figure out who's getting
lots of flashing lights and moving pieces. Yeah. And then, let's briefly talk about the power-ups. We talked about them a little bit already. Train will double the amount of ghosts that you get.
Can I just jump in about one last thing with the badges?
Yeah, please.
So like all the badges you earn, they're going to pop up on the right side under where like it shows you how many people are left. There's a meter at the bottom and it shows you where it's going to show you how many jammers are going to pop up on your screen. The more badges you have creates a threshold. So like if you have 4 badges, that's 4 less jammers that are going to come to your screen.
Okay, gotcha. Now, do the badges also, because in Tetris 99 it works this way, do the badges also count as a multiplier for sending jammers to other characters?
No, because that would like kind of eliminate the purpose of some of those power-ups too.
Right, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the first one of these Nintendo Battle Royale games that actually has like multiple power up and targeting things. You know what I mean? Like it's got 2 things to keep track of instead of just one, which is complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, but maybe right before we get to the power ups, actually, we can just talk about like optimizing controls a little bit, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. Because when you start the game, it like defaults to D-pad and the left stick does nothing, which is really stupid. But if you go into settings, you can change that around. Do you play with the D-pad or do you play with the stick?
I play with the stick.
Okay, right. So I think something to do right away that's going to help you immensely is changing the left stick to movement and making sure that you control that way. It's much more like an arcade joystick, like when you're playing Pac-Man in the arcade. So that just right off the bat makes more sense to me than the D-pad. And then also like the Pro Controller D-pad, you get lots of false inputs with the D-pad, just like with Tetris 99.
Tetris 99, it drove me crazy.
These games in particular show that the Pro Controller D-pad is shit, you know? But if and then if you're playing handheld, you're playing with Joy-Cons, you're just fucking with buttons there, and that can be kind of infuriating too. So I would change the stick to that. And then I think for power-ups, I like to set that to the D-pad on the left, or the face buttons on the left Joy-Con, because that just kind of makes sense the way that they're spread out, and that way I'm not using the right side for both targeting things. Although I see the advantage of that, so you never have to take your hand off the stick. But yeah, there's just different optimizations there. But some of the ones we've talked about already, train will double up the ghost that you get from sleeping ghosts, and they'll add it to the train quicker. So instead of having to clear 4 lines of sleeping ghosts to hit your max train, you just have to do it twice. So that's a really big one that you want to do, obviously, right before you hit them. Anything else with train that's important to know about?
Yeah, just keep in mind that it is going to spawn a jammer Pac-Man. So if you have jammers all over your screen, don't go with the train.
Right. Yeah. Unless, of course, you're heading right towards a power pellet and you're about to clear them anyway.
Or if you already have a power pellet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Perfect. So you're saying you cannot, jammers will not spawn when you have a power pellet active?
No, they will, but you could just burn right through them.
You can just burn right through them. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Makes sense. Speed will increase your speed, obviously. But it will send less jammers. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. It's like 75% less jammers or something like that.
Yeah. So it's like one jammer will go for every 4 ghosts you eat.
Oh, okay. So that's quite a bit less. Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're trying to play offensively. Something also to know that I'm pretty sure at least with speed, I noticed this. If you have the speed thing active and then you pick up a power pellet, you go even faster during the time that the power pellet is active. And I think that's true for all of these. Like in power pellet mode, your power up is increased even slightly more. We talked about stronger a little bit.
Yep.
Kind of, I think we've already covered that for the most part, unless there's anything else you wanted to add about stronger.
No. And then with speed, I only use speed as a defensive tactic if I'm running away. Like, and I've only used speed towards the end of the game.
Right.
Just
that's so funny that we do the opposite there. Yeah. I wonder what's more optimized. Time will surely tell.
Yeah.
And then the last one is standard, which is just basically no power up, but also no diminishment. You know, you're not going to be losing anything because you're stronger in another area. There's just kind of no balance. It's just basic
playing Pac-Man.
Yeah, just playing Pac-Man with 100 other people, just like the good old days. Cool. So those are the things you need to keep track of on the sides. I think just like Tetris 99 or Mario 35, if you can, if you're getting overwhelmed by stuff, you know, the best really advice that you can have to play this is just getting good at Pac-Man. You know what I mean? So it's like picking one thing, setting it and forgetting it, and then just trying to play as best as you can is always going to be your best option, I think. You know what I mean? Until you get to the point where you're able to juggle, you know, changing targeters and attackers on the fly and stuff like that. Because you'll just get overwhelmed and trying to pick the stuff, and then you'll lose track of what's actually happening on the board, right?
Yeah, and like one thing about Pac-Man too, which I was surprised that some people didn't know, when you get a power pellet, the ghosts are going to run away from you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not all just random movements. So, you know, if you want to just give yourself a break, get a power pellet and sit there for a minute, they're going to clear the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that kind of takes us to something else and just like getting good at the base game, you know, like before you play Tetris 99, the main things you have to do is just get good at playing Tetris fast, single player, you know?
Right.
But with this game too, there's like lots of little optimizations that you can learn just from the base game of Pac-Man that people don't either just never were aware of or didn't even know existed. You know, for instance, each of the ghosts has a different AI. And they behave differently. You know, I think it's Clyde will always run away from you, or he's trying to avoid you as much as possible. The red one is always kind of be the one that's going to rushing you. And then the other colors as well have their own unique AI. I don't have that down 100%. That's something I need to get better at. But just kind of knowing the behavior of the ghosts will make it easier for you to avoid them when they're starting to move really quickly. I don't know if you've looked into that at all.
I haven't.
Yeah, that's high level Pac-Man play, right?
Yeah. That's when everybody's really getting good at the game. Then I'll start digging into that.
Yeah, right. And then also there's kind of like grinding the corners and stuff like that. Have you noticed that you get these little sparks when you go around corners sometimes?
No, I haven't.
So that's something that I think they added in Pac-Man Championship Edition, which is where the sleeping ghosts also came from and the ghost trains came from originally. But essentially it's as you're heading to, you don't have to like turn the stick immediately as you're heading to a new spot. You can kind of preload the turn before you get to it, and it'll make moving around the sides a lot easier. And you'll see these little sparks that move around as you're turning around corners. So that's just something beforehand is always kind of like setting where you want to turn before you actually get there. You don't want to do it too early because sometimes you'll just sit at the end of a thing if you don't do it right. But getting the timing down for the actual movement of your Pac-Man is super important there, and kind of grinding comes into that. There are some videos that show off that from Pac-Man Championship Edition.
Right.
Let's see. What am I forgetting? Is there any stuff that you want to bring up?
I think we got pretty much all the basics and how-tos and rules to the game, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking through some of these notes on the article that you wrote here. Yeah, I think you have in here that you don't want to eat ghosts right away, and you don't want to eat fruit right away, and I think that's super important to know. I think like it's always going to be most ideal if you can send a train of 32 ghosts at once, as opposed to 8 or 16, right? Or 24 for that matter. Maxing out your ghost train and sending it all at once is going to confuse and befuddle the other player that you're sending stuff to. And especially if you're sending it to, 5 or 6 or 7 people. That's called Rorschaching, by the way. That's something that the streamer Northern Lion came up with. It's like, I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me, and just taking out a bunch of dudes at once. That's when you're targeting attackers. So, getting your train up to like as big as it can get, and then sending that to as many people as possible at once is going to be a really good offensive tactic. And then, every time that you eat a fruit, it's going to make the whole game move a lot faster. And ideally you want to clear that whole board to get your speed upgrade before you eat that fruit, if possible, in the early game. So, wasting it right off the bat is just going to waste your potential to get upgrades.
I think we hadn't mentioned with the fruit that you have to clear half the pellets off the board to reset the fruit.
That's true. Yeah. That's something that took me a while to understand. And that's the little pellets, and that's just the little pellets. I don't think the power pellets count toward that.
Right. It's just the little pellets. And like sometimes a new board will pop up and there's like, one corner missing of power pellets or regular pellets. So it still would just be like clear a corner. Yeah.
Yeah. Just clear one corner. At those points, it's really nice. And then sometimes it'll pop up and there are no little pellets. Right. And then at that point, the fruit is there right away. For you to grab, but don't just grab that right away. Like that's a really good opportunity for you at that point to switch to your power up to train, make a train of 32, grab the power pellets in the corner and just send 32 of them. Make sure you send out your train whenever it's cleared like that, because it's giving you an opportunity to grab power pellets really easily there. And to send that out before you grab the fruit.
For sure. And on those like empty boards too, it's funny because it's a fast-paced game, but you kind of have to strategize how you can waste time at certain points. So it's like when you have that whole open board, it's like try to get around and use those power pellets to like waste time just so you don't have to like get those ghost speed up.
Yep, for sure. The one thing that I quite don't understand is how red Pac-Man or red jammers spawn. I had a theory that it's when that kind of bar at the bottom fills up with jammers in the late game. I feel like maybe when those fill up completely, you get a red jammer in addition. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So like, because sometimes you'll get multiple at once, and I feel like that's them sending a full 32 stack train to you, right?
Yeah, that could be. Again, looking like all over the internet, I couldn't nobody really has an answer yet of how red jammers spawn.
Right.
That's a good theory. Some people just say even sending KO targeting might add on a red jammer just spontaneously.
Right.
Or some people are saying using the stronger tactic is sending red jammers as well. So
that would be a good advantage to using stronger. I think personally I think that would make me more likely to want to use it, because those red guys are such a pain in the ass.
They're terrible.
Yeah. I just always try to get, basically when you have a red jammer on the board or God forbid multiple, you just got to grab a power pellet as quickly as possible and clear as much as you can to get fruit as soon as possible to clear them out.
Right.
Because when you have the power pellet, they are still, they're not chasing you, fortunately. Maybe, I mean, we've gone over a lot of tips and tricks. Maybe we can just briefly talk about the DLC for this game and kind of the value proposition there. Have you bought the DLC?
I haven't.
Yeah. It's Probably not worth it, honestly. I mean, it kind of depends on what you want to do. I, like an idiot, immediately just bought like the $30 DLC because I just really like these games, and I was like, fuck it. It's got like a ton of skins, and it, it unlocks new modes and stuff like that. And so I got it. I kind of regret that decision. I think basically the way the DLC works is there is a $15 DLC, which if you're going to buy any of them, that's the one that I suggest that you actually purchase. And that comes with 3 additional modes that are all offline. One of them is like a time attack. One of is a blind time attack. And then one is like a points game. One is a blind time attack. And one is just the regular game against bots instead of people online. I actually recently took a trip. I'm recording this in LA right now. So actually buying the DLC was great because I was able to like practice the game on the plane with no internet, right? So that was kind of nice. And then the score mode is kind of the most classic style Pac-Man that there is. It's still got the trains. It still has jammers that get sent to you and stuff like that, but you have 3 lives. And it's just about kind of getting the highest score that you can, just like classic arcade. And then the time mode is actually pretty fun as well. It's kind of like a race against the clock to get 12 pieces of fruit, cool. And eventually the key. So yeah, personally, I would recommend the $15 DLC. It also comes with, I think, 8 different skins that are all Pac-Man themed that you can swap out the regular skin for. And those are all pretty good. I think the basic Pac-Man ones that come with it. And then the $30 DLC, basically, the only difference there is it includes an additional 20 skins. And it's all skins based on old Namco games. So I don't have a lot of nostalgia for that, which is why I feel kind of duped into buying the $30 one. But you do get nice little emblems every time you play one of the Namco skins that you can then use as your logo on the windscreen.
That's pretty cool
if you get a Pac-ONE. So I don't know if that's worth $30 to you, but that's pretty good. The main, I think, advantage that why I would recommend people at least getting the $15 pack is that it does add the ability to do private rooms. And that was the same with Tetris 99. That was behind a paywall too for the big block DLC for Tetris 99 to do private rooms. And basically that's, you set up a code and anybody who has that code will join in, and then the spots that are remaining are filled with bots.
Did you do the Tetris 99 DLC?
Yes, I did. In fact, I played, I did a Tetris 99 tournament at PAX South a couple of years ago, whenever things were still happening in the world. And the DLC was required in order to play that because you're playing against people locally, so you needed to have rooms that you were in, right?
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, I mean, for my money, the Tetris 99 DLC was worth it, especially because it just came with marathon mode, right? So it was basically, if you didn't already have Puyo Puyo Tetris on your Switch, it just came with normal ass marathon Tetris, right?
Awesome.
And so that's good to have. I do wish that this DLC came with just standard Pac-Man as well. I think then it would be a no-brainer, I think, to pick up the $15 pack. But some of the other modes are still fun in single player, especially if you like the gameplay loop of Pac-Man 99.
You didn't tell us how you did in the Tetris 99 tournament.
I talked about it on the podcast a while ago, but I think I got 4th place.
Nice.
in the Tetris. I fucking would have been way happier with 3rd, honestly. But that was, the Tetris 99 tournament was some of the most stress I've ever felt in my entire life. Like, my heart was beating out of my chest. Like, and it wasn't just me. Like, everybody in that tournament was like, anxiety was just like coursing through the room. Matt or Patrick will tell you, it was intense. Even though there were no screens for people to watch, so people were just watching us play in handheld mode. But it was intense, man. That was a fun time. I'd love to do some Pac-Man 99 tournaments as well sometime, but I need to get better. How many wins do you have? How many Pac-1s do you have, by the way?
I am at 8 right now.
Woo, boy, that's good. That's better than me.
A lot of them were right at the beginning of the game where everybody was still trying to get a feel for it. And I had a little bit of an advantage after looking into it. Now it's kind of balanced itself out.
Yeah. I've only got 2 wins right now, which is why I felt compelled to have you on the show to give me some tips that I could get better at. I'm not quite the expert at it like I was at Mario 35 for that episode, but
the game's only been out for 4 days or so, and I feel like every day I've played, I've had a different strategy as well. Because I'm learning so much about the game, and then other people are pretty much getting the hang of it too, and learning in the same way. So, I feel like there isn't going to be that set strategy for a little bit.
The meta is evolving constantly. And then also like a lot of these strategies will change as people just get better, right? Like Mario 35 was that way, where at the beginning of the game, before anybody had unlocked any of the levels, the strategies were different than when, in the late game where you're playing on worlds 8 and 7, like at a pretty consistent clip.
Right.
So definitely a lot of this stuff is subject to change, and some of this stuff we might just be like dead wrong about too. It's like if you, and that's kind of the great thing about these games is they seem so simple, but you can really play your own way, which I appreciate. And if you find a strategy that works for you that's different than what we said, by all means, feel free to let us know in the comments, or feel free to tweet at Super Switch Headz or at Dan and just tell us how fucking stupid we are that we didn't include your strategy. And that would be great. Real quick before we wrap up, out of all 3 of the Nintendo Battle Royale games, where does this one stack for you?
For me, I think it's going to go Pac-Man, then Tetris, then Mario.
Wow, you're going to do Mario dirty like that, huh?
I really am.
Yeah. You're not much of an original Super Mario Brothers guy?
I am, but just Mario 35 didn't click with me.
Yeah.
I even got my little Game & Watch right here.
Yeah. Dude, I wish you could play Mario 35 on that. That
would have been the best.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Tetris 99 is still the GOAT. I feel like all these games are still based on Tetris. You know what I mean? Where it's like sending garbage is like fundamental to multiplayer Tetris, and then they basically just took Tetris rules and added it to everything else. So I feel like for me Tetris is still my favorite, but man, yeah, I do miss the more deliberate, slow nature of Mario 35. I think like Pac-Man 99 at the current moment moves a little too fast for me. Maybe I'm just getting old, or maybe I just keep drinking before playing, and that's a major problem. but yeah,
I feel like I've kind of thrown my strategy out there in little bits and pieces, and I'll just kind of throw it together in one fluid thought before we wrap up.
Yeah, please.
So at the beginning, I like to clear the board, get all the mini pellets I can, try to get my speed up at least minimum 2 times. Try to get 3 to 4, but it depending on how fast people are getting knocked out, 4 might, 3 or 4 might not happen. So,
four is the sweet spot for me. Even if I die early, I try to go for it, because you can always restart,
And in those first 3 rounds, you're not going to have a lot of jammers sent to you. So like, you can even just have the train button spammed, like just on the entire time, and try to get those sleeping ghosts. So it's like each round in the first 2 or 3, I'm going to clear the pellets. I'm going to get 32 ghost trains, clear them, get the fruit, do it again. And then once I get to about 50 left, that's when it changes to a little bit more defensive mode. I'll use speed if I'm trying to run away from a ghost. I'll hang out in corners just right by power pellets if I feel like I just need to clear a lot of ghosts out of my way. And then once I get down to usually about 10 left, that's when I change from my targeting to counter to knockouts. And knockouts is when I'm going to start actually going for those big ghost trains with stronger, and I'm going to try to send all of them to the knockout ones. So I just got a win this morning. That was my strategy then. Like I said, it could change tomorrow, but
yeah. No, I think that's good. I think that's good stuff to follow, and I'm definitely going to start doing that myself as I'm playing through more. Fighting that intuition to just have speed on the whole time, which is like definitely what my gut tells me to do, right? But if I see results with that method, then you'll definitely have made a convert out of me.
Yeah, and just like really get to know those power-ups, because at this point you can't win without really knowing what they do or using them.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good. Cool.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this very special episode, talking all about tips and tricks for getting good at Pac-Man 99. We'll maybe we'll if this is popular, maybe we'll finally do one for Tetris 99. But I don't know what I can tell you other than just get good at Tetris, though. I mean, that's like the main thing with that game. But I'm sure there's other things I could tell people. But other than that, if you'd like to find me online, I'm at Monolith Fiji, pretty much everywhere on the internet. And where can people find you, Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at DCDM99, and then you can find my articles on www.bossrushgames.com.
That's right. You're on their podcast every once in a while as well, right?
Yeah, I do the Nintendo Pow Block podcast that
awesome.
Releases Wednesdays, too.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. And if you'd like to find Super Switch Headz on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter. We are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook. Then, of course, we've got a really robust Discord community that's always posting all the time. And then we've got our Facebook group as well if you'd like to become a member of the community. But other than that, folks, we'll be back with a normal episode this Wednesday. Wanted to get this one out before it became completely irrelevant. We'll be back. We'll be back, and Matt and Patrick will be back for the next episode this upcoming Wednesday. So until then, we'll see you. Everybody, be safe out there. Get vaccinated. We love you guys very much. We'll see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.